Okay, she be gone every single night. Day and night on my mind, pushing you to vibe.
How's it going, everybody? This is Top Driver. I hope you're having another great day, and welcome back to another video. Alright, so it's time for another edition of Random Thoughts. In this series, I talk about whatever is on my mind, whether it's something interesting in the world, a personal story that I want to share, or if I just want to rant about something. And this is a random thought that I was hoping I would never make. I'm going to be honest with you, after seeing what's been happening the last few weeks, I was hoping that I would never have to do a video on this, but unfortunately what has happened earlier this week, along with last week as well, has really forced me to have to do this, unfortunately. For this random thought, I'm going to be talking about the mass shooting epidemic that's been happening here in America. Yes, this is a very sensitive topic, however, it is recently reignited as of lately because of all the tragedies that have taken place in Uvalde, Buffalo, and a whole bunch of other places as a result of mass shootings, unfortunately, and it's really brought back to debate about gun control. So I thought I would use this video to talk my thoughts on what has happened, talk about the situation as a whole, and what I think really needs to happen moving forward, so that way something like what has happened the last month will never happen again. So as we all know, gun control is probably one of the most controversial topics there is to debate here in America. It's been talked a lot about in Congress, it's been talked about a lot in neighborhoods. It's really a common topic of debate, and it's a good reason why, because there's been quite a bit of instances of crime that's been committed by guns, and a lot of it has had to do with mass shootings, unfortunately. Some people that have decided to just shoot up places because of, revenge, or really because they just planned it or something like that. But really, it has been a major problem, especially since Sandy Hook in 2012 and Parkland in 2018. After Parkland, I was really hoping that we would not see anything like this again, but usually, if you know me, I'm not a guy that's very optimistic when it comes to, something like this, because usually, never again, it ultimately will happen again. And unfortunately, early last month, it was the first of what would be many instances of this particular thing happening again. Obviously, this all started in Buffalo. Now, obviously, in Buffalo, there was a supermarket, obviously, and unfortunately, there was a gunman that had been fueled by, this great replacement theory, and he had went up there and shot up a store and ended up killing a whole bunch of people. I believe 10 citizens, unfortunately. A majority of them were African Americans as a result of it, and he got arrested for it and recently got indicted with, I think, almost 20 or 25 counts of murder or something like that. Well, he pled not guilty to them, and it really brought a real debate too, because this was also a guy that had followed conspiracy theories recently, and unfortunately he just committed something like this because of that particular theory. And I will talk a little bit more about this later on, but this was the first instance of mass shooting happening again. However, this was only just part one, and unfortunately, the next one would be a whole lot worse. The majority reason why I'm even doing this video in the first place would be of Uvalde. Now, Robb Elementary School, this is a place in Uvalde, Texas, and really a small rural town, and they were actually finishing up there with elementary school there. They were entering their very last week there. Their last day of school was supposed to be on Friday, and just earlier that day, they were actually holding an award show for all of the fourth graders that are going to be graduating from that school and moving on to the next school in their lives, the next chapter in their lives. And that was earlier in the morning. Unfortunately, the tragedy will happen much later. Salvador Ramos, a guy that had been really planning this for almost the last few days or something like that, he would go in there with an AR-15, and unfortunately, as we've all read by now, he would murder almost 19 children, as well as 2 teachers as a result. All of them were almost in the same classroom, unfortunately. And what was worse is that this number could have easily been prevented if there had been more intervention. As we're continuing to learn more and more, the Uvalde PD was unfortunately very slow to react to this. They were very slow to even get there, and in fact, after initially saying that they had initially combated with this guy, it was later learned that they had never even made any attempt to even go after him, unfortunately. He just went in without any sort of a fight whatsoever. And not only that, even videos and photos that have been coming out recently were showing of the Uvalde PD actually preventing parents from going into the school to try to save them, because because Uvalde PD would not even act. It had to take for the Border Patrol to actually go in there and try to stop this guy, unfortunately. And as a result of all of this has led to much more deaths than it really should have been. And unfortunately, parents, some of them, they had to jump over the fence just to run in there and try to save their kids and get out there without the gunman going after them. And as a result, it was a tragedy that ended up becoming a lot worse than what it should have been. And unfortunately, this is the incident right here. As bad as Buffalo was, and that was really bad, this one right here brought back memories of Sandy Hook. And this one was what really reignited the whole gun control debate. Really, it's been all over 24/7, almost a whole bunch of places. Ames just most recently in Iowa. I believe Racine somewhere, whatever state it is, I don't know. And then there was a shooting at a hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma, unfortunately. There have now been so many of these that are now in the news that it's starting to become clear it's really going to become a major central topic of debate, unfortunately. And it's one that's just really is not going to stop being in the news anytime soon. And unfortunately, that is such a shame. Here's the thing. After the Columbine massacre in 1999, there's been a lot of discussion in regards to, how we would be able to prevent stuff like this, how we would be able to keep stuff like this from ever happening again. Unfortunately, there's been a very long struggle with being able to do that. It's been very hard to compromise on being able to find ways to be able to make sure, that the guns do not end up being in the wrong people, and make sure that people that have had bad backgrounds, like criminal backgrounds, and like mental health issues and all of that, make sure that those guys are prevented from ever having control of guns. Unfortunately, it has been a major struggle as a result of it, and it's led to incidents like Virginia Tech in 2007, where a whole bunch of students were killed there. Parkland, as I mentioned, Sandy Hook, a few other colleges as well, and a whole bunch of other places, and even outside of school as well. Like places like Las Vegas, where that was a tragedy. The Orlando nightclub in 2016, unfortunately. Even in San Francisco, where there were a few people killed in late 2015. It's become such a major issue lately, and it's only recently reignited. I would have thought 2018 would have been the year that we have been able to fix this, but unfortunately, like I said before, I'm not an optimistic guy when it comes to stuff like this, and I think you can tell why. So with that being said, how do we move forward from here? Well, in my opinion, it is not an easy thing to answer. I personally just have no idea, because this is something that I feel like is just going to keep going longer and longer until something finally happens. If you remember, in the United Kingdom back in 1996, there was a horrific shooting in a school. Since then, thanks to legislation and all of that stuff, there has not been a major instance of a mass shooting in the United Kingdom since that day. Canada, they just recently announced that they would be doing restrictions on guns as well, making sure that, guns are distributed properly as well to the right people. And, that's a country where there are rarely ever mass shootings as well. Here in the US, I don't know why it is so hard to be able to come together and find some sort of an agreement, so that way we can prevent an incident like what happened in Buffalo or at Uvalde from ever happening again. It's just hard for me to envision any sort of compromise like that from happening in the near future. So yeah, it's very hard to decide where we go from here. For me, I think as a former student that was in Union County College at the time, and this was actually a true story. In 2018, in February, just a week after the shooting in Parkland, there was a student that actually came into my college with a fake gun that was almost very similar to the one that was used in Parkland. Fortunately, it wasn't real. It was fake, but he still ended up being arrested as a result of that. And, that could have been very, very bad. I was nowhere near that. I was downstairs at the time. I would tell you personally, if that was real and he had decided to shoot up the place, it would have been a whole lot worse. I'm going to be honest with you. I would have no idea if I would even be talking to you right now. So it was a very traumatic experience for those that were up there. Again, I didn't know about this until like later that day after I had left the college, but it's something that popped up quite a bit after Parkland, and is popping up quite a bit right now. And I believe there has also been a few schools here in New Jersey that have had to have instances of like shutting down for a day or something like that because of something similar like what happened to Uvalde. It is something that's just become really wretched as of lately. So there has to be, in my opinion, some sort of gun legislation. I really feel like there has to be something to make sure that something like this does not happen again. Does that mean complete gun restrictions? No. I personally believe that the Second Amendment needs to be respected, in my opinion. I think people that are able and do not have serious background issues and are good mental health wise, I believe everybody deserves to have the right to own a gun. And there's a possibility in my time, whenever I have my own home, that I might have to have my own gun. I don't know. But the thing is that there's a Second Amendment for a reason. It's to make sure that, everybody has the opportunity to, to defend themselves where things get haywire. And I think we need to understand that. And that's why I think everybody deserves the right to have a gun if they choose to do so. But it has to be under the right circumstances. And not, for instance, like what happened in Uvalde and Buffalo. In my opinion, I think only limit access to guns to those that do not have serious criminal background issues or those that have had serious mental health issues. Everybody else 18 or 21 or older that has very serious issues should not be allowed to have a gun. Everybody else that's able to manage both of those issues well, mental health and background wise, I think they should be allowed to at least have some sort of ownership of it, as long as they are using it for the right purpose. Now when it comes to the age limit, I do agree that it needs to be lifted to 21, not 18 in most states, but at the same time I'm just leaving it up to the states to decide on what they should do with that. Everything else I really do not know. I sort of do not understand why it is so hard to come up with a solution, because in my opinion I don't know what a proper solution is in regards to this. I feel like this is such a sensitive topic that it's just hard for me to come up with something to be able to find a way to help stop this situation. And unfortunately, I don't know if that solution is going to come anytime soon. But at some point, Congress needs to do something, and really that time better be now. But unfortunately, I'm not even confident that that's going to happen. So really, this is just going to continue to be an endless cycle, and the best we can do right now is just manage that and make sure that we get better, so that way we don't end up having a situation like what happened last month from happening again. Finally, the reason why I'm even doing this video, and this is probably the main reason why, was that back in 2012 when Sandy Hook happened, I did not have a younger brother. I was just living in high school, going to school then, but at the same time it was really traumatic. But I did not actually have a younger brother at the time. I do now. I have an 8-year-old brother, and I believe I've mentioned him multiple times here on my channel, Ryan, and I love him to death. All my life, despite the fact that I've had sisters, the only thing I've really ever wanted was to have a younger brother. And obviously that I have now had since 2014, and he has been a part of my life. And he is in elementary school. He's almost at the age of some of those victims from the Uvalde shooting, especially in Sandy Hook as well. And this has brought fears to me in regards to what might happen to him if something like this would ever happen at his elementary school. Now he's up in a school that's a little bit further up from here, but he's actually going to be moving to elementary school next year. That's literally just a minute walk or so from my house, and really, that's pretty good because I get to see him, there. I get to walk over, maybe see some of his events, see what he's doing, all that stuff. But at the same time, like I said, this is public property, and unfortunately, with all the instances of mass shootings that we have been seeing nationwide, it is something that has become such a traumatic issue that I now have fear of what might happen to my 8-year-old brother as a result of what happened in Uvalde. It's a traumatic situation, and unfortunately, it feels like elementary schools are really the ones that are suffering the most out of this. They're the ones lately, when it comes to this gun situation, that have had really the biggest issues as a result of that. And we really can't count out middle schools and high schools as well, because this is a situation where I feel like that, it has to be managed better. And unfortunately, as I said before, there is no easy solution to this. My big fear is something like this happening in his elementary school, where he ends up becoming one of those victims. That would be absolutely devastating for me if something like that were to happen. And I promise you, I would not be so sure if I would even be making any videos within the next few weeks or so if something like that what happened to my younger brother. So that's exactly what I'm grieving right now. That's exactly what I'm hoping does not happen. But at the same time, something's got to be done, because right now my big fear when it comes to this is him being next on that list. Folks, gun control is a very sensitive issue, and it can be very controversial as well, because there are some people that may talk about guns being okay, but there needs to be some restrictions to this, while there are others that are just all-out defenders of guns and think everybody else should be allowed to have a gun, even those that have had major criminal activity, without realizing that possibility of Uvalde, Buffalo, or Sandy Hook from happening. And unfortunately, unfortunately, there are instances where when they are in the wrong hands, it ends up with something like what happened in Uvalde. Now, I don't know if mental health really did play a role in any of those situations. If it did, then hey, there needs to be something done in regards to that, but it really needs to be determined whether or not, anyways, how we can stop another situation from happening again, because never again no longer counts in this situation. I don't know what the solution is, but hopefully there is one that can be agreed on soon, because the last thing I want is my little brother to end up being killed in a mass shooting like what happened in Uvalde, and for another instance like this where even nearby me or anywhere in the US that might be even worse than what has happened the last month or so, because there's been way too many of this lately. So yeah, my heart grieves for all the victims that were a part of the Buffalo and Uvalde shootings, along with all the other mass shootings that have happened in the US since then. My heart goes out to them. I wish them the best, and I'm hoping they can find peace and a new life as well. But at the same time, this is a time for action. I'm not confident that will happen, but I feel like something has to be done. I don't know how, but at least just figure out something, because otherwise this is a situation that's only going to continue to get worse. If that's the case, then the worst thing that could happen then is a mass shooting at my location, and unfortunately that would be the worst case scenario, this becoming a 24/7 thing. So hopefully it happens soon, but I'm not that confident in that. So it's a controversial topic to talk about, so I'm going to leave it up to you guys in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this? Is there a solution to stop something like this from happening again? And personally, what do you think can be done to stop situations like this from ever happening? Feel free to let me know down in the comments below. This is a controversial topic, but again, I really like to hear your opinions on it, so please leave it in the comments below, and I'll be more interested in hearing from them. But let's keep it civil, because the last thing I want is for an all-out war to happen in the comments section. So please, feel free to let me know down in the comments, let me know your opinions about this, but at the same time, let's be civil about it. So yeah, a rather depressing random thought today, but I just felt like I needed to get my thoughts on this. But that's going to be enough for today. Hope you all enjoyed it. And as always, if you'd like to see more of my content, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when my latest video is released. Comment below for future suggestions for all my videos, whether it's blogs, projects, challenges, or random thoughts, you name it. Leave it in the comments below and I'll do my best to make them. As always, follow me in my social media. All the links are in the description below. That's going to do it for another video. Hope you're having another great day. Hopefully a peaceful day as well. And as always, I hope to see all of you again in another video very soon. So long, everybody.